Some people get replaced twice. Once on paper when HR hands them the letter, and once in reality weeks earlier when nobody said a word, but everything quietly changed around them. The second replacement is the one that matters, because that's the one you can actually do something about if you catch it in time. Most people don't get fired. They get quietly replaced weeks, sometimes months, before anyone officially says a word. And by the time you're sitting across the table from your manager getting the talk, the decision was already made a long time ago. You were just the last person to find out. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just how organizations work. And once you understand the signs, once you can read the room the way experienced people do, you will never be blindsided again. So let's get into it. Here's a little story. It's a Tuesday morning. Maxwell has been working at the same company for 6 years. Good guy. Decent performer, always shows up on time, never causes drama, gets his work done. But lately, things feel different. His manager used to stop by his desk for a quick chat. Now she walks past without making eye contact. He noticed he wasn't invited to a strategy meeting he would normally attend. And last week, he found out a new guy on the team. Someone who joined 8 months ago was asked to lead a client presentation that Maxwell had been handling for 2 years. Maxwell told himself it was nothing. Maybe she's just busy. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe the new guy just needed the experience. 3 weeks later, Maxwell was called into a room and told his role was being restructured. But here's what Maxwell didn't know. That decision had been made 11 weeks earlier. Everything else, every small, confusing moment he brushed off, those weren't coincidences. Those were signs. So let's talk about those signs, because most of them are subtle. They don't hit you like a truck. They creep in slowly, one small shift at a time. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. The first sign is when your workload quietly shrinks, and nobody explains why. On the surface, this can actually feel good. Less stress, fewer emails. You think, maybe they're giving me a break. Maybe things are just slowing down. But here's what's really happening. When a company is preparing to let someone go, they start what I call the handover process, before you're even told there's anything to hand over. They begin quietly shifting your responsibilities to other people. They cross-train your colleagues on tasks that used to belong only to you. They're building a world where the business still runs, without you in it. So if you've noticed that important projects are going to other people, that your calendar is suddenly lighter, that decisions are being made without looping you in, pay attention. That's not a break. That's a blueprint being drawn up. The second sign is that your manager stops giving you feedback. Think about that for a second. Feedback, even critical feedback, is a sign that someone believes in your potential. It means they think you can improve. They're investing time in you. When feedback stops completely, that's when you should worry. Because what it often means is that your manager has mentally checked you out of the equation. They're not trying to develop you anymore. They're not correcting you. They're just tolerating you until the transition is complete. Silence from leadership is not peace. Sometimes it's the loudest warning sign in the room. The third sign, and this one stings, is when you stop getting invited to the rooms where decisions are made. Every workplace has 2 kinds of meetings. There are the meetings on the calendar. And then there are the real meetings, the ones in someone's office at 4 p.m. on a Friday, or over coffee before the day officially starts. The conversations where actual strategy gets shaped, if you used to be in those rooms and suddenly you're not. Someone made a choice about your future. They just didn't tell you yet. Think back over the last 30 days. Were there decisions made that you should have been part of, but weren't? Did you find yourself saying, "Wait, when did that get decided?" If yes, that's not an accident. The fourth sign is when someone new starts asking you very detailed questions about your job. This one is tricky because it can look completely innocent. The new hire is curious. They want to learn. But there's a specific type of questioning that should raise a flag. When someone starts asking process-level questions, how exactly do you handle this client? Where do you store these files? Who do you call when this situation comes up? That's not casual curiosity. That's documentation. Someone above them quietly asked them to get up to speed on everything you know. Not because they're building a team, because they're building a replacement. And the person asking doesn't even always know the full picture. They're just doing what they were told. The fifth sign is a shift in how people talk to you. Human beings are not as good at hiding things as we think. When colleagues know something you don't when they've heard your name in a conversation, you weren't part of their behavior changes. Some become slightly warmer, over-accommodating, because they feel guilty, even if they had nothing to do with the decision. Others pull back. Less eye contact, shorter responses. Conversations that used to flow now feel forced and strange. And sometimes the most telling sign people stop including you in the informal moments. The after-work drinks you used to hear about. The group lunch organized without a text to you. These shifts in social energy are not random. People are reacting to information they have that you don't have yet. Now here's the part of the conversation most people avoid. Once you start seeing these signs, the next question is, what did I miss? When did this start? Could I have done something differently? These are important questions. But hear this clearly. Sometimes the answer has nothing to do with your performance. Sometimes companies replace people for political reasons, budget reasons, because a new leader came in and wants their own people, because the business is heading somewhere that no longer needs your specific skill set, not because you're bad at your job, but because the game changed. And sometimes, yes, sometimes the signs were there in your own behavior. Maybe you stopped growing. Maybe you got comfortable when the world around you was moving. Maybe you were solving yesterday's problems instead of tomorrow's. Neither scenario makes you a failure. But both mean it's time to wake up. Let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer was a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company. Smart, hard-working, genuinely good at her job. But over time, she'd stopped learning new things. The tools she used 3 years ago were the same ones she was using now. She was comfortable. Then the company brought in a new head of marketing. Young, energetic, obsessed with digital strategy and AI tools. Within 2 months, Jennifer started seeing the signs. Fewer invitations. A junior team member getting mentored directly by the new boss. Her ideas no longer getting the traction they used to. Here's what makes Jennifer's story different from Maxwell's. Jennifer saw it. She didn't ignore the feeling in her gut. She sat down one evening and asked herself a question most people never have the courage to ask. If someone was evaluating me right now honestly, what would they see? The answer wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. Over the next 3 months, Jennifer quietly started working on herself. She took an online course. She documented her results more clearly. She reached out to 2 people in her industry she'd lost touch with. She had an honest conversation with her manager. Not defensive, not emotional, just clear and professional. She didn't save her job at that company, but she left on her own terms, with a reference, with sharpened skills, and within 4 months, she landed a better role at a better company with higher pay. The signs didn't destroy Jennifer. She used them as a compass. So what do you actually do when you start seeing these signals? First, resist the urge to panic or get emotional at work. I know that's easier said than done. But fighting loudly or retreating completely, both usually make things worse. Get strategic. Get quiet. Quiet means calm, clear-headed, focused. Strategic means you start preparing your next chapter while still showing up fully for this one. Second, start documenting your wins right now. Not defensively, just as a discipline. Keep a simple record of what you've delivered, what problems you've solved, what results you've contributed to. It protects your confidence, and it gives you material for your resume, your interviews, your next negotiation. Third, invest in your relationships outside your current company. Most people wait until they need their network to build it. That's like waiting until you're thirsty to dig a well. Reach out to former colleagues. Show up on LinkedIn not desperately, just consistently. Let people remember you exist. The people who weather job loss the best are almost never the most talented ones. They're the ones who stayed connected. Fourth, have an honest conversation with yourself about your skills. Are the skills you're selling today the same ones from 3 years ago? Has your industry changed while you stayed still? The moment you replace waiting with learning, your whole energy shifts. You stop looking like someone falling behind. You start looking like someone on the move. And fifth, separate your identity from your job title. This might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. When you truly believe that when it moves from a nice quote to an actual truth you live by, you become almost impossible to defeat. Here's the bigger picture. The working world has always had hidden dynamics, office politics, quiet decisions, power shifting in ways that aren't always fair. That's not new. What is new is the speed. Industries evolve faster. Companies restructure faster. The idea that loyalty to one organization guarantees security, that idea has been quietly dying for 20 years. Which means the smartest thing any working person can do today is build a version of themselves that doesn't depend on one company's decision to be okay. Not 2 jobs. Not side hustles if that's not your thing. Just a skill set that's real. A network that's warm. A reputation that's honest. And a sense of your own value that doesn't need someone else to validate it.